All for coming. We have a few here. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll begin by a reverence with Julie Taylor, board member. Then our flag salute, pledge of allegiance will be Keith Meekum, who are assistant superintendent of secondary teaching and learning. And then recognitions will be by Julie Taylor, a board member. We'll go to that point.
Father in heaven, we're grateful to be able to gather here together as board members and community members. We're grateful for the blessings of freedom that we enjoy in this country and for our freedom to assemble and to our rights and privileges to vote and to participate in the democratic process. We're grateful that we have the opportunity to represent the students and community members in our Box Elder County, and we pray that as we make decisions tonight that we can be mindful of what is most important and how to best make the use of our resources to benefit those students. We're grateful for all those that have spent time in preparing and planning and making things available in the facilities that we have here. We pray for thy spirit to be with us in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Will the audience please rise and repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, so we only have one recognition tonight. It's this UHSAA, and I didn't write a separate letter because I thought it was like what they had was here, but we wanted to recognize Box Elder High School. Utah High School, and you probably all read it, but Utah High School Athletics Association has a Raise the Bar. We're trying to increase sportsmanship and in our extracurricular activities in sports in particular, I believe. I just wanted to read this part. Where is it? We've received a Box Elder. This is the 11th year of the Raise the Bar program. We'd like to recognize who received a Bronze Star for completing the first level of sportsmanship requirements. And if you look down at the, as I can see, but it's do rowdy right, cheer for your team and not against your opponent. And they talk about teaming up, teach, enforce, award, and model good behavior. So the Box Elder High School has reached that Bronze Star level, and we just want to congratulate the students and the faculty and everybody who's been a part of making that good sportsmanship on and off the field. And we hope that we can move up to the next levels each time. And I don't know how many years it takes to go from one level to the other or how they award it, but 5 years? So we're bronze in 5 years, Box Elder could be silver? Okay. So, and that was it, so.
Okay, that's perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Thank you. Okay, now we just need a motion and a second to approve the agenda tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda this evening.
Okay, Connie Archibald has made the motion and Julie Taylor the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, our agenda is approved. And we have no one for public comment tonight, so we can pass on that. And then we'll go to our action items. And Keith Meekum will be the first one for approval of school-based mental health screenings.
So I'm representing Megan Bushnell tonight, and she's at a conference with all the other elementary and anyway, some conferences that they're in Florida. And every year we have this since 2020, a grant. We have applied for it again. You can see that there's only $500,000 for the whole state, so there's only a portion of this. And we're seeking board approval to use this to help continue supports for the Beaver Mental Health Department that helps interface with our students for, you can see, anxiety, depression, suicide ideation. This is a resource for parents. Not every parent qualifies for the program, but based on the criteria that the Bureau of Mental Health puts in. They will then get approval, and then they come to the school and they help support kids through some of these types of struggles that they're having. And so we're asking the board's approval to be able to allow us to apply for and to receive this grant application that's going to go in. I wish I knew more. I just had a little snippet. Maybe Steve,
We did pilot, we were one of the districts that piloted that the last couple of years, and it was done at Young Intermediate, and it's just an invitation. Parents come to kind of a presentation, and then they can decide if they want to have their children screened with somebody.
Is what we get at.
Are there any other additional questions?
I move that we approve the school-based mental health screening grant application.
Okay, Brian has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Karen Cronin has made the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we'll go on to Keith again for the approval of the Sex Education Committee.
Thank you. I'm trying to do a couple of jobs here. Running the technology, typing in minutes, and running this recommendation, so thank you. So I am so excited to take over for Gary, and the first assignment he gave me was you have to come up with, I think we've traditionally always called it the Sex Education Committee. The policy actually talks about it being that. However, when I saw the document from Gary that he used last year, and then I've just tweaked it a little bit, it's called the Human Sexuality Committee. The reason why we have one is per policy is a 4015, and we meet together, and any new curriculum that comes through that involves anything with human sexuality has to go through a committee and then brought before the board for approval. Last year I asked Gary how often they met. They said they met once because there wasn't any new curriculum. But there are some things inside that policy that I don't know if we all know the specifics of. And so we will meet in August, and I'm hoping, and I can come back with maybe some informational items of what we discovered per the exact parts of the policy. Because Aspire is down currently, I'm still struggling getting parents to respond because I don't have everybody's email address. Some of the teachers are having a tough time. This is how the committee is as of, I've got yes by all of these individuals that are listed, but I'm hoping for at least one more parent. The rule says that parent and employees should be at least equal. And I'm not, but I will, and so I may come back, and I don't know if I can, how we ought to do that. Just say I'd like to add another person to the committee. I'll do that as soon as I get, it's kind of I learned about it at the end of June, and it's been a fun 7 or 8 days trying to get people to respond. So we're moving. I'm excited about it. Superintendent, do you have any jokes you want to say?
I promised you I wouldn't say anything, so.
So I would just ask the board to approve this 23-24 district Human Sexuality Committee, made up of parents at a variety of levels on both ends, health teachers, our nurses, and we have some outside individuals. We're still working, community resources as well. So would seek your approval.
Keith, how do you choose the parents?
Well, this year, I because of the late notice, I just kind of stuck with the group with almost, not all, there was 3 or 4 that we changed, but I stuck with kind of a similar group. I just wanted to make sure we had representation. That's an area that I'd like to get involved, see what it's like, and then seek a diverse group of people to help. We are using a similar group from last time, but some people, parents have aged out if their kids are out, so we're looking for others. So people definitely at the intermediate, middle, high level are the kind of the focus.
So I know some of the parents on this committee, so I move to approve the members of the human sexual, what is it? Human sexual, sexuality committee proposal.
I'll second.
Okay,
I just have
Nancy.
a question before I
Oh,
vote.
okay, question. You
She was
bet.
quick, really quick.
Absolutely, Karen.
So a lot of the ones that are listed as parents are also employees. I'm wondering, in the future, if we could maybe get it out to more
I agree, 100%.
parents so that it almost looks like we might stack the deck if we have a lot of people doubling, so I'm in approval of it, I'm just in future
I agree
years.
with you. And knowing now that this comes up in July, I will be ready and I'll make sure before Aspire drops down that I'll have more people at a variety. So
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Nancy Kennedy made the motion and Brian Smith the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So now we go on to Superintendent Carlson will talk to us about the approval of administrative salary schedule.
Okay, last month we approved the negotiations, and there was some discussion at that board meeting about the new administrative salary schedule and the idea of steps versus years on the salary schedule. And as I've put down in the recommendation, there are some options. However, I would, suggest keeping the new salary schedule and then, making the decision whether or not we go with years or with the placement that we had with the administrators on the salary schedule. I tried to explain that in the recommendation, so is there any questions or how could I?
I just have a question. So the one that, the salary schedule that's attached here, is that the new one?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is the one where it's not based on years, they're like steps and, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's steps. However, what the question was we tried to place them based on a step on the old salary schedule and then a 6% increase.
Right.
And that did not match their years. And that's where
That's where the
the
confusion-
concern was. And so now the choice is either to stick with that or go with the number of years they have as administrators.
Okay, thank you.
So, on the teacher schedule, steps do equal years,
Yes.
but it doesn't now for administrators.
On this right here, if we say it would, it depends on what the vote is tonight. It could mean the years they have in service or the step where they was placed and then the reset to go forward with it.
So, I'm trying to remember back. I remember, so teachers got a set amount. They all got the same
They got
percentage.
4,200 and a 3% COLA and steps and lanes.
So, but that didn't work for administrators because their lanes changed.
We tried to make it so that then we also gave the BESPA, the Box Elder Education Support Professionals, 6.5% because they were supposed to receive a little bit more than what the teachers got, according to HB 215, I believe it was. And so then we did the same thing with the administrators, trying to make sure, that we kept that right close to that 6%. And in order to create the new salary schedule, which we wanted to do, we've been talking about for a couple of years, to make it so in longevity that they would be able to make more money. And also, there was a student stipend for the number of students in your school that, in all honesty, had been there for years. And a lot of discussion, they didn't feel like that was fair because if you had 450 kids, are you doing that much more than 560? So that was changed. We tried to get the elementary, intermediate, and middle school salaries closer together so that when it came time, if somebody, wanted to move from the middle school to the elementary, it wouldn't be such a drastic pay cut to allow them to have that flexibility. And so we put that into place. And I think those were two of the key things, let alone the just more on the bottom end or the high end, I guess you'd say, of the salary schedule.
Any other questions?
Yeah, as mentioned, I went in and talked with the superintendent on this, and I went back to the book that we read a couple years ago about how not to be a terrible school board member, because I've been going back and forth on what to do here. But one of the things it says you were elected by the voters to inform yourself on each issue that comes before the board, to ask questions you need to make sure you fully understand the issue and to seek information. So in that meeting, at the end of the meeting, I'd asked for some information, and I have not yet received that. So I'm wondering if we could table this until I could get the information that I had asked for. Part of my concerns are that some of I did get some information, and I did some rough numbers, and that's why I wanted the district information. But some of the administrators are going to be receiving upwards of 20% raises. Some will be getting greater than $200,000, $20,000 in raise. Some people coming in from the outside of the district will be making more than our district people, even though their years are equivalent. Some directors that are coming in will be making more than directors that have been there for a while. I just need to understand all of that. And in order to go out to a truth in taxation next month and ask for an increase, I need to be really sure that what we're doing is not going to be putting a lot more on the taxpayers than what they are getting in their incomes. So I just need to see the information that was requested at that
I
meeting.
don't remember at the end of that meeting, you said you was going to get back to me if you had more questions. That's what I remember.
Oh, I had asked at that meeting if I could get what they were making last year and what the second schedule would put them at, and an amount increase and the percentage increase, so that I could look at it. So
I think on that one blue sheet that had that on there.
it didn't have it on. That's where I went back and looked at some of the things, and I'm like, wow, if I'm doing the math right, some of them are getting upwards of a 20% increase, but I'd asked
Well,
for
that was the ones though that had the new jobs. That was,
So-
there were 3 people who came from principal jobs to director jobs. And so they went from this salary schedule 2 or 3 lanes over to that lane. So, and there is one problem with tabling it, is that most everybody on that salary schedule starts July 1st with their new salary.
Right. But in doing due diligence, I don't understand it, and that's why I came and talked to you and asked for that information at that end of that meeting. So, I mean, that's just me, I'm just one, but,
I'm worried about teachers being upset that administrators got a much higher percentage increase than teachers did.
They didn't.
Well, if they didn't all get the same percentage like teachers did, then
Well-
it's not.
What was taken into account was $4,200 in the middle of the salary schedule, averaged 6%. At the low end of the salary schedule, the less experienced teachers, it was more like 8 or 9. The top end, it was probably 4. And so they actually, if you looked at that, got roughly, on average, 7% at the very least. And well, on average, they got 7%, but at the very least, they got, Yes.
Average, they got closer to 9 or 10
Yes, thank you. I said that wrong.
for the teachers.
For the teachers.
because of that $4,200. This is the $4,200 stipend that every teacher got. So if I'm starting a first-year teacher, $4,200 is a huge percent of my salary. If I've been a 15-year veteran, it's not as much. So the teachers it wasn't applied, not everybody got the same percentage as teachers either. It was like, everybody gets $4,200.
Yeah, I
and
said
then
that
we-
wrong. The average is 9. The 4,200 average 6. 3% made it average 9. Then if you go up to the higher end, the average would have been 7. And then the lower end would have been
Close to
11.
11%.
Yeah.
And so they actually, overall, the teachers did better than any of the 3 groups that we are talking about here.
I think that the teachers, I think that that we were fair and good with them. I still have some concerns on the administrative one, and that's where the information, I was looking for, I just haven't received.
Well, I apologize. You'd have to write that down because as you left, I thought you said, I'll get back with you if I have any more questions. That's what I understood. I'm sorry.
I thought, as I left,
No.
I said, if you could get me this information so I could look at it, then I would be able to make a decision.
Superintendent, is there a way that we could get that information put together and then adjust their salary schedule the next month, or is that a problem?
Well, it's quite a process for our business administrator, or excuse me, our business department. All of them has to be hand-fed. They'll be put in this month and then turn around and put in, so I have seen some tears down the hallway this past week or two based on,
So Brian, just to explain to you, what we do is we take the salary schedule, we divide it over 12, and we pay him 1/12 of that. If we pay a certain amount this month and then have to readjust it, then we have to go out and readjust that, plus pay what the difference was from the previous month. So it's a manual process for the first check of the 11 now, and then we have to go back the next month and make it even for the next 10. Does that make sense? Because we're paying them the difference of what they didn't receive on the first check, on the second check, and then the third through the 12th check then becomes a different amount. So you're basically quadrupling our workload by doing by not agreeing to a salary schedule before we create the first check.
How many administrators had issues or complaints? Have you had any more?
I had the Box Elder Education Administrative Association come and talk to me. That's, I believe Terrell Jeffs is the current president. Randy and AJ are in the presidency. I don't know if they're past or first vice presidents or whatever. They came and talked to me, and Randy and AJ on the side said, we're fine with everything. Terrell went the next day and talked to Keith, and, just had another explanation of how we arrived at the 6%. And that was basically, as you looked at the old salary schedule, we moved the person down one step, every individual. This had to be done hand to hand. Keith and Dave did it. I was sitting right there as they did it. They went down, and then they went to this salary schedule, and whatever lane you were on, if you were elementary, intermediate, then we found the number most closely related to that step and 6% raise. And then we placed them on that step. And that's where I think, from my understanding, people are upset because then they were placed on steps and they weren't placed on a number of years. Mm-hmm. Now, what I said we just did, that gave the average of 6% raises. Minimum 6% raises, because in the salary schedules, you'll see there are actually dead spots in there. There are like 3 or 4 or 5 years where they're frozen, the salaries are. Then what we did do, as we took them across to the new salary schedule, if they were in a dead spot or a frozen spot, we actually moved them down to the very bottom or top. If you're moving physically, we moved them down, but according to the salary, we moved them up, so that next year, we actually gave those guys an advantage, so next year they would receive a step and then whatever COLA is negotiated there. And so as we did it to try to respect the fact that classified got 6.5 and the teachers got the 4,200 plus the 3, which is more than that, but we wanted to respect the fact that 6% is what we settled on. And then when we presented it to the teachers, they were upset because they felt like they were losing years, of actual, and I'm sorry, administrators, thank you, years. And in explaining that, they still were upset. I mean, I heard one person, actually I didn't hear, I only heard about that person worried about retirement. But in retirement, it's still the best 3 years average of your retirement. And so in the recommendation, I think the biggest complaint I heard, probably the only steady complaint, was, and that was really only from 2 people, and was that they were losing their years, and they were worried that, we'd lose track or whatever the case might be. That's why in the recommendation, I suggested that if the board wanted to go ahead and respect those years or give them their years, the raise would be about $90,000 to $100,000. somewhere in there. In doing the math, I found out that the $100,000 would represent about a 1.3% increase over the suggested 6%. So in fact, they would then get a 7.3%, which, not all. Some would get more, and and the three outliers being Mark and Ashley and Megan, who went from principals to they are getting more, but that's what happens when you became a 260 day employee versus the number of days as a principal. You're taking on more responsibility in the district office. So my suggestion was we could either stay with what we had represented last week, or we could give them that raise of that 100,000, which would mean theirs would more closely represent 7.3. In doing that, if that's what you so choose, I felt like we could talk to the classified association leadership and say, hey, just through some unique things that happened, we ended up giving the administrators a little bit more than what we gave you, and we would take that into account in the beginning of next year's negotiation. And right now, that 7.3 minus the 6.5, or 7.3 minus 6.5 is 0.8%. And we could just say, hey, we'd like to make it right with you guys and give you that right off the top. That's one way I thought we could work with, because I didn't even think the teachers, quite frankly, would be upset, because they really had a banner year.
And I know you know this, but just want to make sure we're studying it enough to not encourage people to leave, that we're taking care of new people coming in more than we are people that stay here. I know you know that, but we just want to make sure we're.
Well, I'm really not sure what, the only person that came in this year was Karina Fife, and she was just placed on the number of years that she had in San Juan School District, and so that's the only new person that came in. And other than the directors did come in, and that's the only other new people that we had. So I'm not really sure what that concern is, if that makes sense.
And I'm not saying that anything's going bad. I'm just saying that I was trying to get the information so I could make an informed decision. I just haven't had that and been able to make the comparisons on that.
So since it's a state kind of thing, steps, that's pretty consistent across the district around the state, right? Steps equal years. Does that mess up if an administrator did want to leave and go to another district?
No, they would just be able to say, I've got, 15 years in administration, and depending on what that new school district accepted, they might get, some districts say, hey, we'll give you 10, we'll give you 5, we'll give you all you've got. And so if they did leave, they would get everything. And as far as retirement, it has years, steps, nothing has anything to do with it. It's just your highest 3 years of salary that they take. So once you've hit 30 years. Yeah.
I would just say, an easy answer. What we've always done is when people move, you just give them a step. If we want to do that, it takes, I know there's some feelings like there's been some randomness about it. It's not random. I know exactly what we did on every employee. But to just say, okay, if I was on year 6, I go to year 7 on the new salary schedule. If I'm on year 5, I go to year 6 on the new salary schedule. If I was lane 2, and now I got a new job and I'm on lane 6, if I was at 5, I'd go to the new lane and go to 6. If we wanted to do that, there can't be any hard feelings, because everything is totally, and we're not placing people. Although when people were placed, we placed them on the one that guaranteed what we just said they were going to get.
6%.
And if it happened to be above a line, then we had to round them to the next line. If it happened to be below a line, then we just rounded them to that line. And that created some potential inequity, but it wasn't, we're trying to be the same for every person, but it wasn't the same, because when you take 6% of a number, it doesn't always round up to the number that's on that salary schedule. So a simple solution is, it does cost a little bit more money, and that is, you just give them your years.
Award the
And
years.
and then there's no feeling of ambiguity, there's just,
What is the long term, if we do that now, is that gonna,
so it'd only be this year.
Only
We-
this year
we
would make
just
it.
Slide
Yeah.
over, and after that, year, 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 year.
but
And
so
I-
it would be more this year, but not, that more every year then?
No, well,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
higher, there's
It would
more.
be higher
it's-
going forward.
yeah.
'Cause it
Higher
would be
going forward, because everybody would get a bigger raise this year, therefore. It
compounds.
Okay, that's
And
what
I
I'm saying.
thought that was kind of where we had agreed at the end of that meeting.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Is
So,
that we would be going at least to that, so that,
Yeah.
everybody would have their years, so.
So we're,
But that's what I was looking for, is the numbers, so I could make sure, where things were at, rather than just in theory.
so my question is, so if we do that, it is simple, but is that,
that would follow what we've been doing the last, I don't know how
but
many
like
years.
cost wise, like when we're trying to be,
So the salary schedule, let me just tell you what happened to the salary schedule, I can just explain it. First of all, everybody on the old salary schedule had a student stipend. If you were at Willard, you didn't have a student stipend because you had to have at least 300 kids, okay? Over 300, if you're in an elementary and you had over 300, you, first of all, the first 300, you didn't get anything, but over 300, let's say I had 500, then you'd take 500 and you would say, oh, that's 200 difference. You times that by $12 per kid, and that was $2,400 on, that we never saw. You don't even see it in the salary schedule because it's added to it. Well, the feeling is then it's like, well, I can't move someone from Mountain View at 365 over to here, or from here to Mountain View, or because they lose money when you transfer schools. So they wanted to kind of take that variable out of the way. So what we did, so that no one lost money, is who do you think has the biggest enrollment? Box Elder High. So we took that amount, which was $4,626. That's what each of those administrators get for student stipend. That's not on the old salary schedule in the boxes, in the steps. It's something that was paid. We just took that number, 4626, added it. So we took the 6%, which is what we agreed upon, and then we took the 4626 and added to that. So, and then we moved people over. So it was money we were already spending, the 4626, so it's just 6%. Now, if I was at Discovery and had 450 kids, I only had 150 times 12, that was that amount. So some of those elementary are gonna make a little bit more because we brought everybody's student stipend up to 4626. But at the end of the day, there was a 6% COLA added to the old salary schedule. And then that 4626, and the frustration is trying to keep people at 6%, or as close as we could. We had to place them on the step. That caused some feelings. But I was trying to keep it as close to 6% as I could. People in the district office don't get student stipends. So if you've listened to a director, not a new director, an old director, they don't get student stipend. So guess what they get? They don't get that 4626, all they got was 6%. Because they didn't get student stipend. So the easy answer and the less feeling answer is just say, what number are you and where do you go? I'll just be straight up honest with you, like I always try to
Yep.
be. I'm on that salary schedule. I'm very uncomfortable. If you give steps, I get a bigger raise. If we
Years.
do it the other way, I don't get a bigger raise. And I'm okay, because I love my job and I love what I do. But I want you to know that giving everybody years is going to cost the district this year a little bit more money and moving forward. We are not near our neighbors. When you start comparing Cache, Ogden, Weber, Davis,
Not even in the ballpark.
we're not even in the ballpark in terms of how much money administrators are making compared to other administrators. That doesn't mean we have to be there, we're trying to be competitive with our teachers, we're trying to be competitive with our ESPs, we're trying to be competitive with our administrators. So I wasn't trying to cause feelings, but I was trying to be responsible financially. But there has been feelings. I don't like that. We changed tradition for many years. I knew that was going to happen. The reality is if we're willing to spend that extra money and just give everybody years, I think there's a feeling of appreciation. I think there's a feeling of it's consistent, there's no ambiguity, and everybody gets their steps. And that's how I feel. I can support either. I know some people that if we did it the way we get, especially people in the current directors, they're not getting as much as people coming in. It's just the way the formula worked, because they didn't get student stipend last year, and all they got this year was student stipend, 6%, not student stipend and 6%. That's where it changes up. So I really believe that, if you really, and again, I feel like I can't say it because I'm on it.
Well, just,
I'm uncomfortable.
I'm going to
with it.
say this, that I worked with Dave, and I said we need to put that, because we had, when Gary retired, I asked Keith to take the position he's now in, the assistant superintendent over secondary teaching and learning. In almost every district that I know of, the HR position is not an assistant superintendent, it's a director position. So I wanted to move that to an executive director position. And we evaluated each director position. We felt like there was some unfairness in that one also. And one of the things that I think is some of the upset is that some of the directors don't have as much responsibility as others do with the number of people that they supervise, the incredible size of their budget. And so we decided that the special education department and the executive director for HR would be in that position. Well, in order to do that, we then had to change the salary schedule for the assistant superintendents. And as you can see, that's what it is. Just an FYI, I happen to know that Davis School District's director position for IT was just opened recently, and it was $175,000 for a director position in IT. And so our assistant superintendents aren't making what their directors make in Davis. And so, therefore, Keith really, in all honesty, I'm just going to say it in public, he fought Dave and I on putting that salary part of it where it needed to be. And so I just said, I'm the superintendent, and that's what we're going to do. So I've sent you another piece of paper that I hope maybe explains this whole thing a little bit better and how I arrived at that 7.3%. If you can see in that top portion, a cost of living adjustment of 1% is about $758,000 for Box Elder School District. That's 1,700 employees. A 1% COLA for their certificated staff, the teachers, but that's also counselors and speech language pathologists and just everybody that has to have a degree to do their job. For a 1% COLA is $418,000, basically $419,000. And a COLA for educational support staff is $263,000, excuse me. And a 1% COLA for administrators is $75,000 and basically $76,000 with that. As close as it is on 900. So then I took and times the certificated staff, the teachers, by that 3%. You saw that was $1.2 million. And the educational support staff times that by 6.5 is $1.7 million, simply because there's just so dang many of them, and it's a bigger percent. And administrators, if you times that by the 6 that we had said was going to be $455,000. Well, Keith and Dave gave me the information as you read through this that if we went with years versus steps, it was going to be in the middle of 90 to 100. So I put down 100 down at the very bottom, and you can see, what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows up that where it says a 1% COLA for administrators is $75,954 times 6% equals that $455,000. Plus the 100,000 equals 55 724. If you divide that by what 1% would be, that gave us the 7.3%. That's how we came up with it. So if we add in the 100%, then we're at 7.3. If we go back and just do as we said we did down to that 6%, that's where you'd come up with the 6. So at the very bottom, you can see in a broad estimation negotiations this year, the ESP received 6.5 COLA plus steps. Certificated staff, a 3% COLA plus 42, average of 6% equals 9% steps and lanes on an average. And that's the middle. So at the very top, they got 7 to 8. On the bottom, they got 9 to 11. And then administrators received a 6%, and I put a question mark, or a 7.3% plus their steps. So with that, I
just want to make a comment that I think there's been a lot of work done on this and trying to make it as fair and equitable as possible and give our administrators what they deserve. And I understand the formula that's behind it all. And when we passed it last month, I felt good about it. But I don't want to, I'm just concerned, I'm not concerned actually, because I'm happy to do either way, like give them do the extra 90 to 100,000 or keep it as what we've got now. My only concern would be is this an extra $100,000 every year that we're going to be like, because their salaries are going to be higher, so then each year it's going to be higher.
Yeah.
Is that something we can sustain?
well, yes, yeah. Go ahead.
Some of what we talked about in the meeting is that some of the money that comes for some of these people is coming from state, so it doesn't come right
Yeah.
out of our budget. And I just wanted to go on the record that I don't think anybody is trying to do anything bad.
Yeah,
I don't, and I appreciate your work, all of you.
thank you.
I hope that you can understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting comments just from inside the district office. I'm getting comments from the whole administrative team, and that's why I'd asked for that information. I just don't want this, what we wanted to be a very positive thing. I don't want any room for it to backfire and have feelings or whatever.
Well,
Really,
I did put
that's
in,
my true intent.
I did put in the recommendation that we could go back to the old salary schedule, and then there would be none of these questions.
And that's,
Angry as I'll get out. 4 or 5.
I don't think that's the case from the calls I've been getting, but I'm just one.
Yeah.
That if we go with the giving everybody their steps
No,
and lines.
the old stuff.
Oh, no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. I never wanted to just go back.
Okay.
I'm just getting some feeling from,
feel that. I mean, I think that at this point in time,
I-
everybody's resolved but a handful. But I think honestly, if we just said, we're just gonna stay, you got your step, slide over, and we just move forward. Can I just address is this sustainable? Sorry. At the end of the year, sometime in April, Dave's gonna total our expenses. And, Superintendent Carlson says that a 1% COLA per our salary is 700 and, what was that number?
758.
758. A couple years ago, that number was
600.
690, 680. So what's gonna happen is, this is how much it's gonna cost us to give a cost of living allowance. But the state's gonna say, here's the amount of money we're sending you, new money. Well, if this is what it costs to fund us, then we only have that much money.
Yeah.
So it might not be a 4% COLA next year. It only may be a 3 or a 2. Because this is our cost and it's ongoing. Here's the amount of money we make. How much can we raise the COLA? Well, if that number's 758 next year is 795 or 800,000, the cost of living allowance won't be as large as it was this year. So it's not like we're gonna stay. I mean, I'll just tell you right now, in 30 years, I've never seen 6.5. I've never seen 3 and 4,200, and I've never seen 6%. This is the largest ever in my 30 years of cost of living allowances in public education in the Box Elder School District. That's a good thing. However, Is it sustainable that the state's gonna keep throwing 6.5%? It's not. We know it's gonna dip, and as such, there may be a year, you forget that in 2021, we didn't get one. It was a zero. We'd get a bonus, but there was no COLA. So, anyway, I'm with Karen. I think the easiest way to keep feelings out is to give them steps. I got to be careful because that benefits me. But I do believe if there are feelings and people are feeling anxious, just keep tradition of what we've done. Next year we'll adjust. We'll know our COLA and whatever we can afford. It might be 2%, 1%, 1.5, whatever. And we just move forward, and we'll continue to do our very best to work hard and serve kids.
Well, to add on to what Keith said, it was just, I think, Nancy, you were there, and I think Tiffany was in the JLC. I asked this question because they talk about the WPU. We're going to give you a 6% increase on the WPU. We're going to give you 5%. So I asked them once again, how much was 1%? And I remember very well about 8 or 9 years ago, that was $24 million. Now a 1% WPU on this in the state is 41 or $42 million. And so what Keith said, the whole big thing just keeps going up. And so to say it's sustainable, it is very sustainable until we have a recession, and then everybody has to take a 3-day cut in pay or a 1% cut in pay. Then we do that across the board. And I think that's what happened in 07 or 08. Didn't everybody take a 3 or 4 day cut in pay? So that's how it's been handled in the past. And right now with the legislature trying to pass, having passed HB 215 and then Amendment G, they are doing everything they can to make sure before the election that they don't upset teachers unions and certified unions across the state so that they won't come out and fight against and so for at least another year, I think things are going to be good. I think so. I mean, I hate to say that from the pulpit, but I think everybody knows that to be the case.
Again, I just want to go on the record. I am very grateful for the work that's been done. I just don't want it to backfire and cause negative feelings in the district.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to make a motion that we, whatever that recommendation was, that we approve the proposed administrative salary and award administration their
Years.
earned
It's
administrative
option-
years of service. So it's
Yes.
option three.
Yes.
Option 3.
In the
So-
recommendation.
Okay, Julie Taylor has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Nancy Kennedy. Okay, now we go on to our information items. And Inland Port Authority, Scott Wolford, Vice President of Business Development for Utah Inland Port Authority. Welcome, Scott. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Do I have to push a button?
Nope, you're
I'm
good.
hot.
You are good.
President Hyde, Vice President Archibald, Superintendent Carlson, honorable board members, it is a pleasure to be before you again. Scott Wolford, I'm the Vice President of Project Area Development for the Utah Inland Port Authority. I have with me Stephen Smith, who's our Director of Business Operations, and also Sean Milne, who represents Box Elder County today. We want to inform the school district about the creation of the Golden Spike Inland Port here in Box Elder County. I don't have a formal presentation. I'd like to talk through it. I'm happy to answer questions throughout, so please interject. I can take as long or as short. I recognize this is a public meeting and we'd all love to be here until 3 in the morning, and I am happy to oblige. But if I stop getting questions, I'll try to keep my remarks brief. The Utah Inland Port Authority was created in 2018. I guess I'm in a public meeting. I got to be nicer how I say this. The Utah State Legislature, through a bill, created the inland port and designated 25 square miles in the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City as a port project area. Salt Lake City was so happy with that they sued us, and we got to spend 3 years kind of figuring out what authorities we have and what we don't. We were victorious in both the district and the Supreme Court level, and those authorities that we thought we had, that we thought the legislature had given us, remained. Since then, The legislature has kind of put some conditions on what we can do, which are great. And we have made very nice with Salt Lake City. We consider them to be a very good partner and look to them to direct the issues of that port project area. We've been working in Box Elder County, with several entities, Box Elder County itself, Tremont City, Garland City, and Brigham City, who all the city councils and county commission have passed resolutions inviting us to create a port project area here in the county. It looks like it will consist of 3 non-contiguous parcels, which will function very similarly to an RDA or a CRA, in which the base tax year property tax rate is frozen for 25 years, and the differential, which everyone else calls increment, but in our code it's called differential, so I'll say differential, is split 75% coming to the Port Authority for reinvestment in the project area and 25% pouring down into those taxing entities. We've done some projections, and I want to talk numbers kind of up front. I don't usually do this. It's a significant amount. Mr. Roberts, yes, sir. Yeah. Have we got that we can put the project area up on the board?
Keith, you have that?
It is. It's just a Google Doc, and let's run to the budget. 40. Oh, that was from memory. Oh, you do have a copy. Sorry, page 39 is our projected budget. We're through the 25 years, you get 25% the whole time. You get the base tax rate, obviously, forever. It never changes. The increase, you get your portion of the 25%. And I got my undergraduate degree in English literature. Math is not my strong suit. I didn't know it would be on the agenda today. It looks like the school district gets about 2/3 of the property taxes. Is that close? Am I there?
Probably, in the whole, taxing entities.
Of all the taxing entities. And so we're projecting 51.9 additional dollars across. If that 2/3 is close, it's about $34 million of additional revenue that will come to the school district during the 25. And then obviously when it expires, you get your entire portion. There we are. See, I'm talking about it before it gets on the screen. Again, 75% coming to the project area, 25% coming to the taxing entities for 25 years. Your base year taxable value revenues are $15.5 million. 155.6 will come to the project area, 51.9 to the taxing entities, and again, that's about $34 million of additional revenue to the school district.
So Scott, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
You said to ask it.
Yes.
That 75% that goes to the project area, where does that go? Who
So,
gets that?
so we take the directive from the legislative bodies, and they direct where that differential will be. No, it doesn't. It stays in the project area, but there's.
Infrastructure, basically.
It can be for
Roads,
infrastructure. It can be
sewer,
for some.
water,
Yes,
gas,
sir.
road.
It can be in the
In the
parcel.
project area, so that would stay in Box Elder County?
Correct. We are
Okay.
not allowed to move differential, and it's a two-edged sword. I can't move differential from Box Elder to Salt Lake, but I also can't bring Salt Lake differential into Box Elder. It really does stay right here. We're using it to build regional economies, projects of significance. The more manufacturing, the more future dollars are going to pour into that school district, and that's the things we're going for. We want a sustainable economic engine that benefits the county, and we're cheating to create a little property tax revenue to build it up front and then pay a debt service long term. In the case of Garland Tremont, they're looking at a significant entity that looks like they're going to come in and add 500 jobs into that community. That's a big deal. They're already a rail-served parcel, so the infrastructure needs are very light. So they're using that as an incentive to bring a business. That's something that they can do. And we function as really just the administrator for that tax differential, but again, taking the lead or the directive from those local elected officials. How's that for an answer?
So that
Yes,
one in Tremont you just mentioned.
Correct.
That is part of this this project.
Correct. We have currently in this first phase, and it could modify through the 25 years, but once we've triggered it, we can't start it over. We can't have multiple triggers. The timer starts, it goes 25, and we're done. But we have the parcel adjacent to Lazy Boy, in Garland Tremont, and it kind of crosses the city boundary there. The Bailey Farms parcel in the county, and then along, State Road 13, the freeway, the Brigham City Airport, that Reeder Farms area is that.
So if I
parcel. Yes, ma'am.
understand you right, the 25 years starts when the project start, not with each individual business comes in?
Correct. We cannot do multiple triggers.
Okay.
We
that's
can
good.
delay a trigger if we wanted to create the project area and wait for a few years before we triggered. We recognize that puts the school district in kind of a bad spot where you may, that 2022, if we create this next month, which we anticipate doing in August, that sits as that base tax because that's when we created it, but we could delay the 25 years to start 2 or 3 years, so you might get revenue and then scale back. We don't want to do that. We just want to trigger and move forward and try to build that vertical, that horizontal build that will raise that revenue as quickly as possible. How am I doing so far? If I run out of stuff to say, I'm going to read from Wikipedia, and you are going to love it. It's a little different in a CRA in the school board. Those other taxing entities don't have to take any action. That's a really nice way of saying we can create this just on the consent, the invitation of those elected officials, the city councils and county. What we want to make sure is that we see this as a partnership with the school district. We've been in conversation with other districts through the state and saying what is it that will bring benefit to you. As we've talked to the Tooele School District, they were very interested in any type of incentive that brings businesses in. They want tied to, at least in part, to internships for their kids. So we're going to have a conversation with their tech college to say, these are the types of things, if you want a post-performance incentive, show us the evidence of the internships for the students. And we'd love to do something like that in Box Elder County with Bridge or Lender, or again, whoever you want us to work with, we're happy to do that. And that is post-performance. If they don't show that they've met the terms of that plan and budget, they don't get the incentive. Any questions there?
No questions there. A question back on your.
Yes, ma'am.
You've got 3 non-contiguous parcels. You named those. Could that increase? Could there become more project areas?
It could. The process is very forgiving, and that can be amended by the same process, which is an invitation from the legislative body, and then two board meetings of the Inland Port Authority Board. That can be modified. If it were, I will be right back here to tell you what's happening and where it's. But again, the timer doesn't start over. If we add parcels year 23, it's year 23, not year 1.
So does that base value change when you add exist? See, so just so you guys understand that, once they trigger that base stays flat. It does not increase as additional pieces of property get added. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, we think there's some nice controls there. We recognize that this is a significant power that the legislature has given us. We want to make sure we use it responsibly and not put a burden on the school districts to fund the economic development of the area.
So if one of those project areas brings in a lot of people, brings in a lot of students, increases the enrollment to the point we need to build more schools, is there any help with that?
So I'm going to say this as well as I can.
I like the
recognizing-
answer, yes.
We will review a set of metrics throughout the project area and recognize that there's a significant danger in any public entity taking funds that they just don't need. We don't,
So I'm wondering if part of that 75% that you said would stay in the county?
Yes.
If that could go to help, if we need to build more schools because we bring in more
there are
business.
lots of things that can be eligible for differential, and I'm sure we can find a way to do that. Now I would add, Box Elder County has a net minus 7,000 rate for people that leave versus those that come into work every day. We don't think, it's a projection, we don't think we're bringing in new people. As we've talked to your employees in the area, you know where those next employees are coming from? They're coming from the schools. So we don't think we're bringing in anybody that's going to say, I'm going to relocate my whole workforce from Ohio. We think we're creating the jobs that keep more people here working. And again, those manufacturing jobs are big cash cows for property tax, and we think we're building a better base for you long-term to draw from.
Could you repeat that number of the
It's minus 7,000.
7,000?
Yeah, if I look at the people that leave versus that come in, the net head is negative 7,000.
Superintendent, you remember the conversation we had with Brigham City, and they talked about those people leaving to work in Salt Lake? That's that number he's referring to, yes. County.
Now, granted, we're not keeping all 7,000 of those, right? There are people that work at Hill Air Force Base, they're in great jobs. There are people that are gonna keep doing it. We lived in Brigham City. I worked for the state. My job went to Salt Lake. We moved. It was too long of a drive. Yes, there are people that aren't gonna stay. But you have people in Garland, Tremont, that are driving to BDO every day in Ogden to work that would love to not drive at $4 a gallon gasoline every day to do that, and would take that job right there. We really think that this is a responsible and very innovative way to create economic growth in Box Elder County. That was a really long answer.
I know yes would have been really short.
Yes,
But,
there's a nuance.
But you did say that in that project area, staying that 75%, that if needed, it could go to help build new schools.
We will take direction of the legislative body that created the area of how that differential is pledged.
Could you take back that it would be really nice if they helped?
Absolutely, I will talk.
Thank you, Sean Milne. I work for Bear River Association of Governments, but as Scott mentioned, I'm here on behalf of Box Elder County. So through the Bear River Association of Governments, I offer economic development and intergovernmental affairs. That's my workload. That's my proficiency. And so in this particular case, and I appreciate Scott and Chair and the board for allowing me the opportunity to clarify that. I represent Box Elder County and all of its member jurisdictions, which would include a taxing entity like the school district. This gets a little personal for me because Mrs. Milne has always been an educator. That is her profession, K through 12 until recently. Now she works for Bridgerland Technical. And so I understand this from both household perspectives. We've had a number of discussions. I'm a recovering politician at the municipal and county level, and so I certainly get this from my current employer's perspective and why I'm here to represent them. But I also want you to know that my goal is to also, I'm not looking to create any kind of delineation like these gentlemen are misrepresenting any of this. This is above board. It's factual the way that they've represented it, and we've certainly been working together very well. But as this continues to roll out, and as long as I remain employed by BRAG and serving Box Elder County and its member, jurisdictions like your own, my job is also to make sure that you're represented fairly, right, and squarely. The intention for quality of life is what we all enjoy as adults, and most of us are employed to give back our skill set to the local community or whatever kind of employer we work for, and to build up our communities. And certainly that's your task, K through 12, and what you endeavor to set up these children to serve the workforce for. My goal is to make sure that when I negotiate any kind of incentives under traditional economic development incentives, of which this is one of those kind of tools in a traditional toolbox that I would use that says, Company X wants to come to town, and they have to build $20 million worth of infrastructure that will not be theirs when they're done, but it needs to be built in order for them to open their doors. That might include water, sewer, other things that don't necessarily concern you, but may involve other taxing entities. And they say, but for the ability for us to put in that infrastructure, we might go to Juab County, we might go to Chicago, we might go somewhere else, right? And so they knock on all these doors from Chicago and Juab County and say, what will you do for me? My job, taking into consideration your perspective as well as the county's or a city, is to say, well, time out. We're here, we would love to have you here, this seems like a good fit, but this isn't just gonna be a single night at the dance. This is gonna be a marriage, this is gonna be a partnership, and it's gonna be long-term. What are you willing to do for us? And so in much the same way that I would handle Company X in that scenario to say, okay, but what would you do for us? You want an educated, skilled workforce. So you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. You don't just want to take into consideration that they can extract whatever kind of taxes to go back and pay for that $20 million investment of water, sewer, and the like, and consider it good. They'll say, well, we build the road, you're gonna help us pay for it, you maintain it, we don't really care what you guys do. And my job is to push back and go, well, au contraire, you do care. And you wanna make sure that you're building up that quality of life that was alluded to earlier. But for this kind of an opportunity, there's just one more way to bring economic prosperity so that by the time they leave your K through 12 system, they have additional opportunities to live and work in the same community in which they were raised, and to do so with a good quality of life, not just to work for an employer that takes from mom and dad during their working years and doesn't give back. So it's all about that balance. If they fit well for our community, fantastic. We want them here, and we might be open to the discussion to say, well, how might we help you reimburse for those kind of costs? If they're not, and we feel that they're going to be detrimental to either existing businesses or quality of life or other reasons, then we would say, listen, we welcome you, but you're going to have to do it on your own dime. So I invite you to utilize me through the county commission in the function that I serve to make sure that I continue to work well with this entity that these fine gentlemen represent, so that, whether it's internships, whether it's a good donation, that any member, any corporate entity that takes them up on what they're conceiving, and we were to say to them, what kind of donation might you make to our education foundation to make sure that you're a contributing member of our community and make sure these kids get scholarships for afterwards or whatever that might be. I want to purposely not create too much of a box that you think of only the ideas I pitch here tonight as to what those other incentives might be. But I'm happy to discuss with you either individually or at some point in the future what those other options might be. But I love how Scott has already tipped his hand and told you at least one school district there in Tooele, what one of the ways that they're considering where this might come back to benefit them. So I'm sorry to have interjected too much. I just wanted you to know that you have an advocate that's here locally working for you. So far, this relationship has been fantastic. I have no reason to believe that it wouldn't be. But please use and abuse me to do whatever you would need to address any concerns you might have.
Thank you.
That's all I have, unless you have more
Okay, are there
questions.
any other questions?
But again, no action needed, and we
Okay.
look forward to working with you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
all that information. Very
Thank you.
We
worthwhile.
look forward
Thank you.
to getting some revenue off that 25%.
It's gonna
That
be
would be
great.
very nice. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming tonight. Thanks so much. Okay, now we will go on to our monthly financial report. Dave Roberts.
So we're done with the year, other than posting salary and benefits for the month of July for our 9-month employees that are paid over 12 months. All the expenses for the 23 year have been posted, and I've just highlighted some of the things that we've talked through the year. As far as revenue, we've talked a lot about our earnings and investments because of the interest rates. And you can see a dramatic increase of what we budgeted for versus what we received. But also too, under the state line, you notice that we only received 89% of we budgeted for from the state. And again, that has to go back to the levy. So that equalization is basically they're holding us harmless, but as we get more in levies from our constituents here in the county, we get less from the state, okay? So that's why that number is down. Natural gas, I just again pointed that out. We've talked about the increase in utilities and supply costs that have jumped because of inflation, and everybody's aware of that because they see that at the grocery store. So just wanted to highlight that. And then again on page 5, which line 135 and 136, again, capital, from our capital levy, we did receive a pretty good increase in our property tax there, as well as our interest account that we have with the state treasurer's office. And I think the only other item. So we're, what, oh, hold on. Line 70. Did I pass it right up? I did. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so we budgeted for 533,000 and we spent 855. So yeah, we went.
He's looking at me funny.
I
I'm just
I would
like,
say both.
that's crazy, isn't it?
So I will tell you this, Corey has told me that the difference between Rocky Mountain, and this is not a dig on Brigham City, but it is, that our utility prices in Brigham City are more than outside of Brigham City. So what we pay for 3 Mile Creek versus what we pay for Lakeview Elementary versus what we pay for McKinley Elementary. There's a difference in utility rates in the city of Brigham. So,
All right, I just want a clarification if I was reading that right.
yep. And the other item I just want to bring your attention, we were a little concerned about, I believe, school lunch because of free breakfast this year, but and because of the fact that our federal income, last year we received $7 million. This year we only received $3 million, and we were a little concerned that we might be a little bit in the negative there, but we actually did pretty okay. Our expenditures were actually a couple $100,000 less than our revenue. However, we have not posted our payroll for the month of July for our contract employees, so it won't be that big of a spread, but I don't think we're going to be in the red as far as our budget for this year in child nutrition. So that was a positive coming out of that. So,
Whoops,
Yep.
Dave, can I add, you're aware, the last 2 years, the federal government paid for all lunches.
correct.
So this year, that got picked up by people who didn't qualify for free and reduced. So when that dropped from 7 to 3, it still didn't mean we lost $4 million, correct?
Correct.
There was probably fewer kids eating, and then the ones that weren't free and reduced paid.
But that was also why we were also able to offer free breakfast this year, is because of the fact that we did receive quite a bit more in federal funding last year. And so we did have a little bit of surplus going into this year. So that's why we were able to do the free breakfast, which has been helpful. Okay, any questions regarding the year end?
Okay, thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that, thank you. Okay, now, do we have any board committee reports? Any committees? Me?
Just a thank you to those that were able to go to the Boys and Girls Club auction and dinner. They made more money this year than they ever have, so.
Wonderful.
And they wanted me to pass on a thank you for the items that the school district donated. Appreciate that.
School principals stepped up, as
So-
always.
Yeah, it was good. Those are always items that are well sought after.
Thank you, Karen, appreciate that. Okay, now we go to our policy review, our second reading on 2 policies there, I believe. Any questions on those or comments?
Can I just make a comment? Nancy, to answer your question from earlier, that redress of grievances actually was through negotiations. And so that we had to change based on that, yeah. So that, and then the medical recommendation one was simply that now we have a nurse practitioner in our nursing department. And before we didn't, so we added that nurse practitioner thing, so you bet.
I move we approve the policies on second reading.
Okay, Brian Smith made the motion, Connie Archibald the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So we go to our book study. It is, let me see here.
It's
We
me.
have Dave with chapter 11 and Karen with chapter 12, and that's the last 2 chapters of our book. We'll finish up tonight.
All right, so a lot of this is, I think, based off of the fact that we have some good life experiences, is all very common, knowledgeable stuff that you guys have heard time and time before. But a couple of things that just kind of reiterated kind of why we do what we do. On page 198, midway through there in that second paragraph, it says, now try this. Think of an educator or mentor who made a difference in your life. Do you remember their name? Tell me who your best friend was growing up, or the name of a person who was there for you during difficult times. Tell me the name of a co-worker who made your work life more enjoyable. Those we can do, right? All of us can name our favorite teacher. We can name our childhood best friend. We can do all that. But if I was to ask you even 2 years ago who won the Super Bowl, I bet you half of you guys wouldn't know who that was. Or who was voted, the Oscar winner for best, actor, those kind of things. So, again, the reason these people are impactful is because they made you feel important. And I think that's the most important thing we realize. It doesn't matter, the things that we accumulate in our life, and it talks about that again in here. doesn't matter what we accumulate, what possessions we have, it really makes a difference of who we become and how we treat others. And again, on page 202, the quote that I really liked here was, "To live is the rarest thing in the world." I thought about that for a while, to live. So it's not just a matter of being here and present, but a lot of times it's a matter of the life that we give back, right? That's the live that we do in our lives is it is a rare thing to be able to finish and be able to say that we've fought a good fight. So below that, it says you can't have a bearing without a destination. A lot of times we just go to and fro, but I think if we try to find a purpose, and a lot of times that's all that matters, is just one thing that we feel passionate about, and we follow that passion and we do, and it can be something very small. It can be simply just being a great neighbor to a kid that's struggling, right? Or a grandparent to a grandchild that has a rough home life. So it's just picking that one small thing, deciding what our mission and purpose is, and following that through, and really saying that the life that you lived was rare in the sense that your legacy is going to be more important than anything you've accumulated or other accomplishments. And I would tell you this, out of all the people that I know, because I'm getting to that age where people start retiring, they say, you know what? They don't miss me at work, but I miss the people. And I think that's the most important thing we recognize is those relationships. And so I know we sometimes disagree on things, and I know that sometimes we may not have the same experiences and thought processes, but I think remembering that how we leave somebody and how they felt when we left is more important than being right. So I think that was a good chapter, so appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Okay, Karen.
So, mine was a relatively short chapter, but I think the message is still very meaningful. And it comes down to that the way that we put all the things in practice that we've read about is just by small and consistent and simple changes. And looking at everything as a learning experience. It talks on 211 about Thomas Edison and what he was probably the greatest scientific inventor of our time, and yet he probably had more failures than anybody. But each failure he looked at as a learning experience. And the author talks about what we can do is take notes of the ways that we try and what works, and what doesn't, and learn from both. And then he said that the magic is not in the amount of time you put in, but the consistent effort. And a few minutes a day to give someone a word of encouragement, a simple email with a few authentic strategies that have helped you, or maybe some quick but insightful feedback on a recent project. If your attitude is focused on mentoring your employees or just being mindful of them to help them with greater success and not just managing them, these small opportunities will arise and help you to become a better mentor and to make your place of employment one that people want to stay.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Thank both you and Karen and Dave for your insights on those chapters. Very, very well done. Okay, consent items. Do we have a motion and a second on those?
Items?
Nancy Kennedy has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Brian Smith has made the second. I guess. I heard him first. Sorry, Karen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent items are passed. So, suggestions for future board meetings, do we have any there?
I don't
Good.
see on there the continuing, I don't know if we make it a board meeting discussion item, the information that we asked for during our work session. When are we going to?
During work session, is that? Yeah, we're gonna do that next month in a work session.
Oh, we're gonna
before
do a
board
work
meeting.
session.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Superintendent Moore, if you could get that information out to us beforehand, and then we'll discuss it. We'll meet probably an hour and a half before board meeting.
Keith.
Okay?
Karen and Brian, anyway, you gave me a couple assignments about DLI. And when I got off vacation, Aspire went down a week earlier than it's supposed to. I can't get into that data, but I will get those questions you asked. I just want you to know I'm still on it. But I'll hopefully get it done in August.
Superintendent, I don't know if this is, you can tell me if it fits. We've talked about, in previous discussions about trying to increase our, how do I say it? Offerings, or not put all of the students into a box and try to expand, maybe offer some students early hours, some later hours. Would it be appropriate, or maybe it's a future discussion, maybe it muddies the waters, I don't know, to include that in our discussion with our grades, grade schedule, yeah.
Somehow throw that in there, I do think that.
Is there one A/B model that would lend itself more to expanding our schedule and giving students, families more options?
That would be a research project, but glad, happy to do it, put some time on that, so.
I would maybe like to know if transportation has new bus routes and times set and figured out. Well, our next board meeting's 2 or 3 weeks before school starts, so they should have them by then.
Any other items? Okay, our board handbook, I think, is up to date and fine, so,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
okay, Karen.
I
Cronin
second.
has made the motion to adjourn. Thank you, Karen. Do we have a second?
I second. Danielle.
Who's saying? Oh, Danielle made the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have adjourned. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for the wonderful day.